You're listening to Mortgage Lending Mastery. Get the knowledge you need to advance your mortgage practice quickly and efficiently from Jen to Plessis, America's mortgage mastery mentor with over 37 years of experience and over $1 billion in lifetime fundings. Jen has been mentoring loan officers and realtors for over 15 years and speaking on stages across the globe. So settle in and get ready as Jen and her guests share their experience, passion, and strategies to help you crack the top producer code to reach new heights in your business. And now, here's your host, Jen Duplessis, Mortgage Mastery Mentor and head chick in charge of Kinetic Spark Consulting.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I have a very special guest with me today, Kate Phillips, who is a wealth coach, financial writer, and singer-songwriter, which is kind of interesting because we've not actually talked about that. So I want to know if there's any favorites we have out there. But her day job is that she writes newsletters for over 6,500 investors every single week, and she co-authors top financial advisors, co-authors books with them, and just helps them grow their business. Her real passion, however, is helping everyday people free themselves from the burdens of financial stress, which we're going to be talking about at length today. So Kate, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jen. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Okay, so before we kind of go into this, the financial stress part of it, because I have lots of questions for you there. I also know, you were also a real estate agent for 8 years. So you are in the space of the context of our podcast here. But you will have a story that I think everybody needs to hear, because we need to all hear that we're not out on an island by ourselves with some of the financial stresses that we have had in the past or have had are experiencing right now. So would you mind sharing with us your story?
Not at all. It is one of my missions to do whatever I can do to banish financial shame. Shame is a low vibration state to be in, and yet money is one of those areas where so many people are stressed, but they don't feel like they can say it. So everybody hides it and pushes it down. And most people are not where they could be or should be financially. But boy, I've got most people beat with my story, if it's a contest, because I struggled with money through my 20s, through most of my 30s, got to a point where I felt like I really had money figured out. I was a single mom, but I was earning 6 figures as a realtor. I was starting to build up rental properties, had money in the bank, was really learning and transforming my own relationship with money. And I had just bought a new home, by a lake, and this was in King County, east of Seattle, wraparound front porch, and this rolling backyard that went into rolling pastures. And I just felt like, I'm kind of sad. I'm on my way. And that was in 2007.
Yep, we know that.
I was teaching as well. I was teaching workshops for women around money, other realtors, mortgage people, just friends, people that I knew, and felt like I had found my calling, was really helping people, especially women, up level their, whatever was going on in their financial world. And then I went through this, it was financial storm. It was this perfect storm of bad decisions, bad economy, bad timing. I ended up becoming my father's caregiver. I went through a breakup and ended up solo on the big house by the lake on the mortgage. And I had just left real estate and moved an hour away from my old market, and was, had launched myself as a wealth coach, and I became the wealth coach who lost it all. I ended up, my tenants, we all remember the great the Great Recession.
Yeah.
My tenants stopped paying rents, and I was caregiving my father, and my own health collapsed, and I lost everything, including, my savings, my retirement. I lost my own home. I was a
Yeah.
single mom with my father living with me as well, and we had to go find a new place to live. And it was a crazy time and a difficult time, but it was also this amazingly transformative time, because I lost everything, all of these outward signs of financial success. I lost the outward identity of a successful woman, and I had to dig down deep and find that unshakable abundance within myself. And I had to know for myself that I'm worthy and that I
Right.
can
You had to
do
push
this. I had to
through.
learn, I had to learn to believe in myself again. I had to learn to deal with shame. That I had several properties that I lost or short sold, or and one of them was my former home. And I remember walking into the Windermere Real Estate that the people that were once my colleagues, and listing my home that was going to be a short sale, with a
Wow.
friend,
Yeah.
knowing that my name was going to be on it. And people were like, didn't
I
she used
thought
to do the
she,
wealth coaching a couple of years ago? And now she's, got a
yeah.
home. I had every home that I owned lost 45%. So all of my assets turned into liabilities. I was underwater, and I had to define for myself what success looked like. Had to go back to the basics, gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
self-care, taking walks, and like really getting in touch with the present moment.
And the
Because
positive things that were happening with you. Yeah.
yes, yes. And I learned, and I had left real estate, so I didn't, I and then when I abandoned wealth coaching for quite some time, I had to learn this flow of giving and receiving. And I learned that that was the magic. That was where it all was learning to give and receive, and believing in myself and loving myself and taking care of myself. And it slowly started rebuilding.
Yeah. I love that story because it's, a lot of people have that similar story, right? They may not be saying it, but they have that similar story. And, I imagine that a lot of people that are listening have been through it. And maybe on the other side, just like you, they've now, come full circle and can now breathe a little bit more. But I think there's this undertone of fear of that happening again. And I know that, I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced it with some of the people that I coach, is that they're, saying, I'm just afraid to do anything because I'm afraid that, all that will be taken away from me again, and so I've really honed in on and really talked about a lot is creating a really good, strong foundation for yourself. So I really like that. So thank you for sharing and being real about that, because I know it's hard. It's still hard to do. Um, and so when we think about financial stress, because that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, is the financial stress solutions. I know that there is a white paper out there, and I have it, by the way. It's a little older now. It's probably 4 or 5 years old, but there's a white paper about the impact on productivity of employees due to financial stress, and the impact on their health, which then leads to them missing more work, right, and having more health bills and things like that, all because of financial stress. So I think
Yeah.
that this is
Yeah.
a great topic for us to be discussing today, not only to help those that are listening, but for those that are listening to also be able to see some signs perhaps, and be able to help their clients through any challenges that they see that they might be having, if
Mm-hmm.
their job is the type of job that could warrant that guidance. So let's just
Mm-hmm.
dig right in and talk about the importance that you see in the I'm having a hard time, financial stress solution, and how someone can get started and, one, recognizing, am I kind of walking around like this and I don't realize
Yeah.
I am,
Yeah.
just a fear, and really overcoming that. And then, some steps, and I know you got 4 steps to this, but, some steps to kind of come out of that and say, you know what, I am in control of me and my finances. So take it away with your thoughts about how to identify.
Yeah. I think one of the first steps is just realizing how many people are financially stressed. Survey after survey says 7 out of 10. It might be 6 out of 10 in one survey and 8 out of 10 in another, but it's 7 out of 10 Americans name money as their top stressor. And I think, and I'm actually going to give you a different formula because my financial stress formula, we used a PEACE formula in it. And the P stands for perspective of prosperity. It really all starts in it's a mindset shift. It's becoming acquainted with the present moment.
Right.
But here's what most people try to do, and I actually somewhere on my website have a financial stress quiz. I did it years ago, even before my storm. And I was shocked when I realized this big thing about the quiz is the quiz was asking people, are you having trouble sleeping at night? Or are you worried or fearful about the future? Is your health being impacted? And all these questions about how financial stress was impacting them. And when I got done with this quiz, I looked at it one day and I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't ask people anything about their money. I didn't ask them if they had an emergency fund or, if they owned their own home or, And I realized how much financial stress exists in between our ears, even more so than inside of our bank accounts.
Yeah.
And that's where the transformation has to start. We have to get a hold of our mindsets and start to believe in ourselves again, start to be able, because when we're in panic and fear, we have these negative habits. They get stressed and they're drinking a little too much caffeine, too much alcohol, self-medicating, not sleeping at night. And then it's a downward cycle.
Yeah. And I would say, even from a business perspective, they're like cats on a marble floor. I mean, they really are just, gimme, gimme, gimme. They're so hungry that people can see it. And it's actually a deflector, from your success.
We used to call it commission breath.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, I like that. Loan officers, you guys should like that for your realtors. Sorry, realtors. But that's really good. That's exactly what I'm talking about is commission breath, money making breath.
Yeah. So we've got to learn to manage our interpretations and, whatever's happening in the present moment, be able to really create what we want instead of just be in reaction. And take those stories, even if we're having a challenging time with money, you can label yourself a loser, or you can say, hey, this isn't working. What should I try next? And so often we're really, we don't need all of the drama. There was so much drama in the Great Recession. And one of the ways that I got through my storm was just disconnecting from the drama. Even when my home got foreclosed on, I realized, I needed to go find a new home. I had no credit. I had no, cash reserves. And I realized that, well, gosh, I've moved, 15 times in my life, and there doesn't have to be any drama in moving. I can just make I can just make a decision. Guess what? This home didn't work for me. I need to find a new home and go and do that without all of the drama attached to it.
Do you think at that point, though, maybe your shame was bigger than the drama? It's easy to disconnect and say, hey, I've moved 15 times, so I'm just moving again. But do you think the shame was the overlying blanket that was pushing you down a little bit?
I really busted through that. And I think I busted through that, and I needed to bust through that before I even moved. And when I went out and found a new place, I had to argue for my worth and why I was going to be the best tenant ever.
Yeah.
I knew that I was competing against,
Other
other,
people going through the same thing. Yeah.
well, and I was also competing against tenants that had good credit scores
Yeah,
for not
that is
losing their
true.
home.
That's
So
true.
I had to
Yeah.
convince a landlord why she should rent with me. And I did. So, um, but anyway, so the P is the perspective of prosperity, and that's key. And the number two, along the same lines, is empower your experience. Whatever experience you are having, whatever challenge you are having, we need to learn to empower ourselves in that moment. And that includes self-care, that includes stress management, that may include yoga, it may include, journaling or meditating, learning to handle whatever it is we are up against in the moment so that we are taking back control, that even, we can do difficult things well. We can do difficult things with grace.
Yeah.
And our circumstances do not have to be perfect. We can empower ourselves even in challenging circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important too, because I mean, what I'm receiving from that is about taking action, and not wallowing in what's happening. You could stay in bed all day, you could, lose sleep all night, and believe me, I've had those nights too. Where I just like, okay, where's the money going to come from, right, to do something, and I can wallow in it, or I can think about ways that I could take action to get out of what's becoming a spiral down, right? And like you're saying, it could be
Absolutely.
something mindset or physical, or it could be talking to somebody. It could be just putting your foot down and doing something that you need to be doing, and you need to be doing, but getting yourself out of that
Absolutely.
pickle, so that you
Hmm.
don't become the victim. And really, that becomes the enabler. That's why the empowerment word is so good, because the opposing word is enabling. You're enabling yourself
Hmm.
to wallow in this situation rather than doing something to get you out of it. I love that. So, okay, so we have perspective and empowerment. What's next?
Absolutely. The third one is action.
Oh,
And so
I had just shut up for a moment. You would
no, no, you're leading right into it, because
have
one
good.
leads naturally into the next one. Absolutely. So it may be habits. It may be looking at what we're doing with our day. It may be looking, could also be our habitual, how we talk to ourselves
Right.
or that sort of thing. But we've got to look at what we're physically doing with our bodies, what we're physically doing in our businesses. Is it working? Is it not? Do we need a new strategy? Do we need to be, it might be something like time blocking. It might be looking at, it might be planning our week and having a sense of priority about what is really
Right.
important.
So
It
nothing
may be
back. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be doing the uh, Brian Tracy talks about, eat the frog. Maybe it involves
Right.
doing
Doing
something
the
every
nastiest
morning.
thing. Yeah, the nastiest thing, first thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
the
love that.
thing that we're trying to avoid doing
Right.
that.
It's and so the opposite of action then is just sitting and wallowing again. And I've seen people do that. I mean, my brother goes through that. He is, just kind of wallows in it, where it's just so negative. I don't even want to talk to him.
Mm,
And he's
mm,
not taking action to get out. And I'm giving him actionable items all the time. Did you this? Did you that? Did you this? Yes, 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 yes. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't really think you did, but that's okay. To try to get out instead of sort of caving and becoming, hermit, when
yeah, yeah.
things happen. So yeah,
And
I get that you have to think about it, and you say, okay, I'm going to power myself to take some action. Then what happens next that gets us out of this?
well, the C stands for care for your cash.
Okay.
And so mindset is fantastic, action is fantastic, empowering ourselves and reducing our stress, all of those things are really important. And we've got to pay attention what actually is going on in
Yeah.
in our cash flow, are we are we earning enough? Are we spending too much? Not sticking our head in the proverbial sand, but really having those open eyes. And part of caring for our cash, it really is some strategy, because one of the things that's really been normalized by a lot of financial advice is, put it all in the stock market,
Or
max
put
out
it
your
all in
401k,
long term. Yeah. Yeah.
put everything in the stock market. And even when a young person, 20s or 30s, is just getting started in their, first few jobs, they are told to max out your 401k, put everything in there. And if you follow that advice, you may forget to build yourself an emergency fund first. And then something, I can't remember exactly the percentage, but I think it was over half. It was either 46% or 56% of people in the Great Recession, they were rating their 401ks, and then they were taking losses on the investments, plus paying, a 10% penalty, plus paying the taxes. So, maybe they had put in $100,000 and they're liquidating it and they're only pulling out 40 or 45,000. I mean, it was such a losing game. So we've got to, when I talk about care for your cash, when you care for your children, do you let them go play in the street? No, you're not going to do that. Your pets, you're going to make sure your pets are safe, your loved ones are safe. But it's become very normalized to put our money at great amount of risks. And it was one of the mistakes I made, was over leveraging myself in real estate, because I had been in real estate for so long. I felt very smart about it, didn't have the experience of going through such a severe, well, almost nobody had the experience of that kind of a market cycle before. But because I was over leveraged, and I did have, an emergency fund, and I did have cash, but it wasn't enough to get me through that kind of a storm. So people who are afraid of, what if this happens again, they need to be looking at, where is their cash, how leveraged are they, and making sure that they don't have a large amount of their assets at risk. Because when we don't have control over our assets, that that freaks people out, and it should freak people out when they don't have control over their assets.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that I was thinking is the another C word, but it's like a consideration about your cash, about caring for your cash. I think that it's just so easy now to swipe a card, swipe a phone, swipe an iWatch, right? Just pay for something, with an app or whatever, or sit around and look at Amazon or eBay or Etsy, whatever it is, is your advice. It's just so easy to let money slip through your fingers. And it's not just the saving part, but also just to stop the frivolous little itty bitty, it's like Darren Hardy says, that he always asks everybody if they got bit by an elephant. And the answer is no, we've never been bit by an elephant, but we're bit by mosquitoes, because it's so seemingly insignificant little choices that we make that can add up, all the time. And I see that happen.
Absolutely.
Hey, save 15%
Absolutely.
by getting a credit card at this store at Christmas, and all those crazy little things that people are sucked into. So I think that's a very good, and I love that you're saying care for your cash, because now it has like this meaning to me. It's not just money. It's I have to take care of it. Wow. I have to coddle it. And so I love that. It's just being nicer to your cash. Right. Okay. So what's the E then?
It is. The E is envisioning the extraordinary. We have to have a vision of the future that pulls us forward, especially when times are challenging. And it was really through those visions of what I knew I wanted my life to be. I think I went 3 or 4 years with like no vacation.
Wow.
I remember when I was trying to get a loan modification that I had to give a written explanation of why I had spent, I don't know, $11 at a Starbucks. I
Right.
mean,
Oh,
it was
yeah. They
ridiculous.
wanted to know everything. Yeah.
and and but I just didn't internalize that stuff. I'm like, that, you know, you kind of have to have that, like you're looking at yourself, from a distance and
Right.
observing. You
Yeah. When
become
you're
the
in the frame, you
observer.
can't see. Yeah.
Yeah, like, look what I'm going through today. This is, interesting. And it
Yeah.
will not always be this way. Sometimes people go through challenging times and they get used to, there can be even a emotional psychological addiction to certain emotional states. We can become addicted to frustration, to pain, and so it's so important to be envisioning what it is that we want, what we want that future to feel like, what we see ourselves doing, what it looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like, and so I envisioned myself on beaches and traveling and having having more time freedom and more cash flow, and those things have come about now. I've been able to travel the last few years. I've gone to Bali, to the Caribbean, to
Oh,
Mexico, to Italy, to France. I think I'm taking my fourth trip back to Hawaii. This is since the financial crash. All of those trips on cash.
yeah.
So I've been able to create that life that I was envisioning for myself. And I'm doing it a little differently now. I'm not as leveraged as I was. I am more conservative about what I do with my cash, and more, I'm paying attention.
Yeah. And I think if people can, hear what you've had to say, heed your advice and say, don't let it happen to me. Let me take the
Mhm.
steps that I need to beforehand. I think that they're going to be better off, in the long run. No doubt, no question. So, okay. So those are the 4 steps. So perspective, empowerment, action, care of cash, and envisioning. And, and I love that. And all that adds up to peace, peace of mind, sleeping at night, comfortable, cozy. And I'm sure there's more steps that need to be taken, to ensure that all this comes to fruition. But I wanted to ask you,
Sure.
that's taking care of yourself. And certainly, someone listening could take that and uh, give that to their clients as well. But what are some recommendations, you having been in the real estate space and kind of know real estate mortgage and obviously entrepreneurship, um, what are some of the things that people could do to help their clients with this if they have the ability to
Mm,
do this,
mm.
if their line of work allows for them to talk about finances with their clients? What are some strategies that they could use aside from just saying, go have perspective? I don't know what it really means. She just said perspective. And then empower yourself. And she said something about doing something, but I don't remember. So what are some things that that just the average person who's listening could say, gosh, if I could remove some of that stress from my clients, because they all come, especially in these big ticket items, right? They come and they're so stressed out. What are some things we could do?
Mm, mm. Well, it's interesting. The woman that I work with in my day job, and helping her build we've really built up her business. She's got the list of the 6,500 investors. Kim Butler. And I say we because it's really her and I together creating the messaging. We are constantly talking about gratitude, constantly. I just did a 10 days to abundance challenge. We're talking about Kim and I doing like a 30-day gratitude challenge. Like, we need to be modeling and encouraging gratitude constantly. Now, I realize this is a mindset thing,
Right.
but the importance of it cannot be overemphasized. That encouraging people always and modeling, talking about gratitude, and so we do that a lot in that business. I would say from a more strategic standpoint, we need to be very cognizant of those. If you're in financial advising, if you're in mortgages, we need to be very cognizant of those market cycles. And right now, it's pretty clear, just looking at history. We could be going into another stock market crash. We could be going into another housing downturn. I know we've seen some things flatten in a lot of markets. So really just being wise and not encouraging people to take risks, but to look at cash flow. I think anytime when we're betting on making a bet that this investment's going to go up, this house is going to go up, rather than looking at, what is the cash on cash return. Right now is a really great time to do some boring things with your money, to put some money into having maybe some CD ladders, that
Right.
sort of thing. Finding those, whole life insurance can be a great long-term place to put money. When it comes to real estate, we need to be looking at, like, now is a horrible time to go flip houses. There's too much uncertainty and volatility. So looking at making sure people can afford, whatever it is that they're buying, that they're comfortable, that they're really checking in with themselves and at peace with that payment. Now, I bought a townhome last year. Homeowner again, yay! That took way too long to get back into it. When my credit recovered, I was like, the prices were so high in the Seattle area. I just decided I didn't want to do that. So I rented a little longer than I could have while I was making decisions. Well, I found a home that I absolutely love, and my payment went down $500 from what I was paying in rent. Now I downsized a little bit, and I've lost, my father's no longer with me. My daughter's out on her own now, so it was a great time to downsize. But we need to be making decisions that we can really live with, that they don't need to be risky. We don't have to be rolling the dice and, trying to take some kind of risk that we hope will pay off in the future.
Yeah, I see that as, if I'm putting myself and envisioning, for myself in the mortgage perspective, and although I'm not actually doing mortgages anymore, I'm thinking, if I'm sitting with a client, it has to be that we remove ourselves from, I'm going to use that for just a second, commission breath, right? That we remove ourselves from commission breath because we go at such a pace, in both of these industries, that it's just next transaction, next person, next transaction, next. And maybe if we eliminate that undertone of that commission breath and push papers aside and say, tell us what your biggest fears are, tell us what you're worried about most, and maybe ask some more poignant questions that get them to think. And we're not trying to sell them out of buying a house, but we are trying to get them to be realistic in their approach, because I can tell you, if you give a client a mile, they will
absolutely
take 10 miles. If you give them an inch, they will take 5 miles. And you tell them that they could qualify for something higher, they will absolutely go in that direction. So now today maybe is not the time to even talk about that, until after. I'll say until, because maybe you don't do it either, but until after you had a conversation, a real adult conversation with them about money, about where they stand and how they think they're going to and that for me is also towards gratitude, because we want to be thankful that we have a house, we want to be thankful that we get good terms, we want to be thankful that we get all the wonderful things that will make us be thankful about this house, rather than resent it later.
Yes,
right, because,
or worse, lose it. I mean, nobody wants to sell somebody a house or make somebody a mortgage and have them go into foreclosure later. So
definitely that. But I'm thinking kind of in between is like, I resent this, I shouldn't have bought this. I should have taken the time to learn more. Well, let's give them the time now so they don't stressed, I think that when they're happy like that, then we don't have to be financially stressed, because then we have a revolving door of referrals because of the time that we took to care about them,
And I think people really appreciate it when a service person is not just rushing them, here, sign the dotted line, but they're asking them those questions like, are you sure? And how do you feel about this? And from a financial perspective, I think there's just a simple handful of things that we can be doing for ourselves, encouraging others to do. It's building that emergency fund. It is raising our savings rate, whatever,
Oh, we're the
if
worst
you,
in the world.
oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the worst
Americans
in
are
the world.
saving about 2%. And you look at a place like China, where people do not earn nearly as much and they are well into the double digits of
Yeah,
savings. We do have one of the worst savings rates in the world.
yeah,
So, if you're saving 5%, how do you get to 10? If you're saving 10, how do you get to 15? And even though I know I'm saying this is maybe not, the best time to run out and buy a house, um, it's never a good time to rent. And so encouraging home ownership and encouraging it in a wise, sustainable way, not, going overboard and putting 45% of your income towards a mortgage is not going to be a good idea. But we've got to be encouraging home ownership, because renting is one of the most dangerous things people can do with their money, because they have no control
yeah.
and they're taking 35% or whatever of their income and they're lighting it on fire every month.
I'm just flushing it. I was actually, I'm, I'm doing
You're doing a
waving. I'm
pop-up.
waving, but I'm actually flushing. I'm flushing it down the toilet. Yeah. Flushing it down the toilet. Well, and by the same token, you don't want your mortgage to be a glorified rental. And I think that a lot of people in their mind shift, their shift, they say, oh, now we own our house. It's the same payment. It's the same everything. It's a glorified rental. But there are ways to manifest the equity in your house, whether it's prepaying, whether it's making
Oh,
improvements, whether it's diverting other funds. And, there's all kinds of ways to continue to make sure that it's not just a glorified rental and it does help you create wealth, rather than letting the market do that for you. And that's what we experienced in 2007 was everybody was letting the market determine what their equity was going to be in their house.
yeah,
And
yeah.
me having control over what my equity was going to be in my house. So yeah, I love that. I love that very much. And I think, for the listeners, everybody who's listening, this is something that financial stress is something that we experience. It's things that our clients are experiencing. And I think it's important for us to be talking about it as we are here talking with Kate Phillips today. So Kate, as we end our time together, thank you so much. This has been really informative, and I have a sense of peace, which is hilarious. Just in the talking about it, I have a sense of
Yeah.
peace that that just in every interaction that we have with people, we need to, our clients, right, that we need to take the time to ensure that they're going to have peace in the decision that they're making with.
Yes.
I mean, that's,
Yes.
I feel that way is, wow, slow down a little bit. Let's make sure that they're happy clients and that we're doing the right thing. So that's
That
what
is
I
so well said. That
like.
is so well said.
Thank
Yeah, we you're
you. Yeah,
right. We want them to have peace in their decisions, and we want them to know that the relationship that they have with us is not it's based, yes, we have a business relationship. Yes, we enjoy our commissions if,
right.
if we are in a commission business. But it's based on also the caring for that person.
Yeah,
And I know when I was a realtor, as I've worked with realtors or with mortgage people, whenever there's a situation when there's a transaction that for whatever reason is not going to finish, is not going
right.
to complete, and when I know that we're fine with that, like we want it to be right, and if this isn't the right thing, then let's go find the home or find the investment that is going to be the right one. It does give you a sense of being cared for, and we want our businesses to be built on relationships.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as a client cash care program.
Love it.
Client cash care program. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, Kate, let me ask you, what book are you reading right now that's making an impact on you, whether personal or professional?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what. Oh, one that I read recently that I just loved that I want to read again is James Clear, Atomic Habits. Just a wonderful book on habits. It gets into the psychology, some fascinating stories, and habits is something that I come back to again and again. I'm a very abstract person and artistic and go by my intuition. And just like we talked about with caring for your cash, you've got to look at your bank account. I have to constantly review what is happening with my time and am I making efficient use of my time. And I found that book very helpful.
Awesome.
I've recommended it to others.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. I'm all about habits, good habits, right? Good habits.
Absolutely.
Habits stick as well. Kate, if someone's listening and they'd like to get a hold of you, I know you have, you mentioned that you have the financial stress quiz. So how do we get that?
Well, I wish I knew the URL for that, but I will make sure that's on the homepage.
You send it to me and we'll put it in the
Okay,
link.
perfect.
And if someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, Kate at totalwealthcoaching.com or through Facebook. If Facebook.com/Total Wealth. I do live videos every Wednesday. I'm active on Facebook, and sometimes I get messages, or simply at totalwealthcoaching.com. Those are all the places you can find me.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this today. My hope is that everybody who's listened to it can just take a deep breath and say, you know what, I'm not stressed anymore. I'm going to slow everything down. I'm going to make sure I'm taking care of my clients, taking care of myself, and I'm going to recognize that money has an impact on me. Let's just make sure that it's a positive impact as opposed to the stressful impact. So thank you so much for sharing all of your great wisdom with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I'm going to share one last thing that popped up, which is if you are in a situation that you wish it was a better one financially, forgive yourself. That's such an important part of loving ourselves, is just being able to forgive ourselves for whatever we've done. We're not going to change the past, and that gives you the perfect place to move forward from. So yeah, whatever situation you're in, embrace it.
That's awesome. I love leaving on that note. That's wonderful.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tim.
Listen to what Kate just said, and we'll catch you next time on the show. And I hope you have a great week.
Thanks for listening to Mortgage Lending Mastery. Be sure to subscribe to hear more sales tips, ideas, strategies, and tactics to help you with your personal and professional growth to multiply your results in record time. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Wanting more beyond the podcast? Join our Mortgage Lending Mastery membership community, where you will find extended interviews with our favorite guests, weekly training, tips, and insider secrets, fireside chats with Jen, free content, meet, share, and collaborate with other members, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about this exclusive content. Mortgage Lending Mastery is an Industry Syndicate charter podcast. Industry Syndicate is the first podcast network specifically for the mortgage and real estate industries. Get the Industry Syndicate app in the App Store or Google Play today.